They didn't know I was in the hallway. They didn't know my phone was recording. They didn't know I heard my own name, my own money, split like a pie on my mother's dining table. Pause. I'm Emily Parker, 45, retired accountant, Boise, Idaho. I used to believe numbers never lied and families rarely did. I was half right. The night it began, the house smelled like lemon oil and roast chicken. Helen, my mother, kept the dining room perfect, the way she liked her life to look, polished, predictable, polite. Richard, my father, stood at the head of the table, tie still on, even though he hasn't worked Fridays in years. And James, my younger brother, wore that smile that always made people lean in, like the beginning of a good joke. I had gone to wash my hands. I came back slower than they expected. The hallway carries sound. Emily will sign, James said. She always does. She trusts us. Knife in my throat. Not literal, just the kind that slices without blood. I stayed in the shadow by the grandfather clock. The clock my grandfather Henry Parker restored by hand. The man who taught me compound interest with a mason jar full of marbles. The man who left me $950,000 because, in his words, "You count carefully, Em, and you care even more." James, my mother whispered, keep your voice down. It's a clean deal, James said louder. We put her funds into Parker West Real Estate, short-term buy, flip, and refinance. She signs tonight, we wire Monday, and by Christmas we're sitting on 7 figures. Family money stays in the family. Family money. Family. My father tapped the table. Emily needs to feel included, not bullied. Dad, James laughed, soft and sharp. I'm including her in an opportunity. She's lucky. Pause. I stepped into the doorway like I was stepping on stage. Lucky, I said, would be winning a vacation. This sounds like a commitment. 3 faces turned, 3 masks tried to settle. My mother stood too fast, napkin fluttering to the floor. We were just, well, we wanted to surprise you. By rearranging my inheritance? I picked up the napkin, folded it once, laid it beside my plate. That's surprising. James spread his hands. Relax, we're talking about growth. You've got cash sitting, we've got movement. I've got an investment fund now, Em. Real assets. I need your capital to take down a block of undervalued duplexes near the river. Boise's on fire, you know that. On fire, I repeated. And the fund is called... He didn't blink. Parker West. Registered where? Delaware. He smiled again. Standard. Website? Under construction. Pause. I've done this for decades. Let people talk until the quiet shows its teeth. Numbers tell stories. So do gaps. Show me the operating agreement, I said. The term sheet, the cap table. Who is GP? Who are LPS, waterfall, PREF, fees? My mother pressed a hand to her necklace like pearls could pray. Emily, darling, your brother has done the homework. We've talked it through. Your father and I think it's best if you sign tonight. James printed everything. My father slid a manila envelope toward me. I didn't touch it. Best for who? I asked. For the family, he said. There it was, the word with no refunds. I opened the envelope, pulled out a stapled stack of legalese that smelled like hurry. The operating agreement was plain word, not letterhead. The dates mismatched. 2 sections referenced a different entity. Parker West Holdings, LLC. Another referenced Parker West Partners, LP. The EIN was blank. The signature lines were formatted in Times New Roman. My old audit brain flared like a warning siren. James, I said, turning a page, your fund appears to have multiple names. Which one owns the assets? He leaned, just a touch. We're still finalizing structure. It's common. Don't be rigid. I'm retired, I said. Not rigid. He stood. Every day you wait is another day you lose. Boise inventory moves fast. Trust me. I looked at my mother. Her eyes shimmered. love and fear and something sharper. I looked at my father. Steel on the surface, smoke underneath. I thought of Grandpa Henry's hands, oil and sawdust, the way he'd tap the jar of marbles and say, "Slow is smooth, smooth is fast." "I won't be signing tonight," I said. Silence. The kind that throws knives. My mother sat, hard. "Emily, be reasonable." "I am." "Don't do this," my father warned, voice low. "Don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene." I set the papers down and slid them back. "I'm setting a boundary." James laughed again, but the charm had a hairline crack. "You're paranoid. You've always been—" "Careful," I said. "The word you want is careful." Pause. We ate, or pretended to. The roast chicken dried in our mouths. My mother asked about my garden, like tomatoes could rescue us. My father told a story about his friend's RV trip, like mileage could mend trust. James checked his phone every 2 minutes, the way a gambler checks the door for luck. When dinner ends, I left with the envelope in my tote bag. I left with a headache at the base of my skull. I left with a decision I didn't know I'd made. Outside, Boise night was good to me. Dry, honest, full of stars that don't pretend. In my car, I opened my banking app. I stared at the $950,000 Henry had left me. Not a windfall, a responsibility, a love letter written in trust and decimals. I opened my notes app and typed 3 lines. Verify Parker West. Check Secretary of State filings. Call Walter. Walter Hayes, retired attorney, my friend of 12 years. The man who helped me negotiate my last job exit with grace and paperwork. Calm as a winter lake, eyes like a notary stamp. Everything official, nothing wasted. I drove home, rust-winded through the aspens. The clock in my hallway ticked like it remembered everyone's secrets. At my kitchen table, under the same pendant light where I've balanced budgets and baked pies, I started searching. Parker West plus Boise plus LLC, nothing clean. Parker West Holdings plus Delaware, a shell that wasn't quite born. Parker West Partners plus Idaho, a name in a PDF agenda for a city council meeting, but the link was dead. I checked the Idaho Secretary of State's portal. No Parker West that matched the entity names in my envelope. I checked Delaware's database, possible filings, but the addresses didn't match the mailing address in James's papers. And the EIN blank, again. At 11:07 p.m., I pressed record on my phone and saved a new voice memo. If you're listening to this, future me, you're not crazy. You're seeing smoke. Find the fire. Don't let anyone call your caution cruelty. Then I texted Walter. Urgent. Need a consult on a family fund. Morning? A bubble. Then, 9 a.m., my office. Bring everything. I set the phone down and stared at the envelope. The paper felt heavier now, like it had absorbed all the words we didn't say. I thought of my mother's pearls, my father's tie, James's grin. I thought of Grandpa Henry's mason jar and how he'd count out 5 marbles into my palm for mowing the lawn. Pay yourself first, he'd say, and never invest in what you don't understand. I understood this. Pressure dresses up like love, and theft likes to wear a suit. I washed the smell of chicken from my hands. I brushed my teeth. I locked my door. At midnight, my phone lit up. James's name. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. You're overthinking it. You always do. Sleep on it. Tomorrow we'll sign. Don't embarrass us. It's family. Pause. I saved the message. Then another thought bled through. Record everything. Let the truth hear itself later. I opened a new note. Title, Inheritance, Chain of Events. Time-stamped, precise. The way I've always protected other people's money. Now, I'd protect mine. I turned off the kitchen light and the darkness looked back. Not unkind, just honest. This was the night I stopped being the good daughter. This was the night I chose to be something scarier. Accountable to myself. And if that made me the villain in their story, so be it. The first lie I caught wasn't in James's words. It was in the silence of Google search results. Type in a company name and get nothing? That's louder than any confession. Pause. By morning, my coffee tasted like suspicion. Strong, bitter, necessary. Walter's office was tucked in a strip mall between a dentist and a tax prep chain. Retired, yes, but he kept one small room, one oak desk, one leather chair that knew how to listen. I laid the manila envelope down like it was evidence in a murder trial. He thumbed through the papers, frowning deeper with every page. Emily, he said, if your brother printed this off the internet, I'd still call it sloppy. Sloppy, dangerous, fraudulent, words lining up like dominoes. Could he be legit? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Walter took off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. If legit means filed, registered, documented, transparent, then no. This is smoke pause. I told him about the dinner, the whispers, the pressure, the voicemail from James. He listened, pen tapping. Start recording, Walter said. Every call, every meeting. If this escalates, and I promise you it will, you'll need a clean trail. He didn't have to convince me. My phone was already filling with voice memos. That afternoon, James called again. This time, I answered. His voice oozed through the speaker, all confidence and impatience. Look, we don't need to drag outsiders into this. Family business, right? Just sign the papers. You'll thank me in 6 months, I tapped record. 6 months for what? For doubling your inheritance. For not looking like a fool while the rest of us profit? You mean, while you profit? Silence. Then a laugh, sharp as glass. Don't be dramatic. Pause. I let him ramble, every word another nail in his coffin. He promised returns, threatened lost opportunities, and finally slipped. Emily, if you block this, you'll regret it. I'll make sure of that. My hand shook as I held the phone, but my voice stayed calm. That sounds like a threat. He backpedaled instantly. No, just motivation. Click. Call ended. File saved. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house ticked like a metronome for dread. I opened my laptop again. This time, I didn't just search databases. I searched people. James Parker plus fraud. James Parker plus complaint. James Parker plus real estate scam. And there it was, a thread on a Boise neighborhood forum. Someone warning about a man offering investment opportunities with no paperwork. Description: tall, early 40s, slick smile, Parker last name. I screenshotted every post, forwarded them to Walter. The next day, I met my parents for brunch. Neutral ground, a diner off Main Street. The kind with chipped mugs and pancakes bigger than the plates. Mom buttered toast like nothing was wrong. Dad checked stock prices on his phone. Emily, Mom said, James told us you're being difficult. Careful, I said. That's his word. We only want what's best. What's best, I cut in, is not walking into a fraud case. Dad's head snapped up. Fraud? You think your brother would scam his own sister? I think my brother already has a trail of victims, I said, sliding the printouts across the table. Screenshots, forum posts, comments, warnings. Mom's hand froze midair, Dad's jaw locked. Internet gossip, he muttered. Evidence, I countered. The diner clatter faded. A waitress poured coffee, oblivious to the earthquake at our table. Emily, Mom whispered, don't do this. Don't tear us apart. I leaned forward. I'm not tearing us apart. James is, and you're helping him. Pause. That was the moment I saw it, something flickering in my mother's eyes. Guilt or fear? Hard to tell. But my father's face turned to stone. He pushed the papers back toward me. Enough. You'll sign. End of discussion. No, I said. The word hung there, heavier than any gavel. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just James's scam. This was a family conspiracy. There's a moment when silence becomes more dangerous than shouting. When the people you love look at you, and you realize they're looking through you. That was the morning I stopped being their daughter. and became their opponent. 2 days after brunch, I drove to my parents' house. The curtains were open, the lawn clipped short. From the outside, everything looked ordinary. But inside, it felt like a courtroom, and I was walking in as the enemy. Mom opened the door. Her smile was tight, rehearsed. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed. James was already at the table, tapping his phone, pretending he didn't see me. I set my tote bag down and pulled out the folder. Not just the fake papers. Now I had transcripts, recordings, screenshots, my ammunition. Emily, Mom began, let's not drag this out. I placed the folder on the table. No more dragging. Just truth. I flipped open the first page. The Parker West documents. Then, the screenshots from the forum. Then, a printed transcript of James's voicemail. Dad's face flushed. James stopped tapping. Mom pressed her fingers to her lips. This, Dad started. Is evidence, I interrupted. Not gossip. Not paranoia. Evidence. James leaned forward, smirking. You think a couple of forum posts and a voicemail prove anything? Come on, Em. You sound desperate. Desperate, I said quietly. No. Prepared, I tapped the transcript. That's your voice threatening me. That's your company with no filings. That's your name tied to complaints online. Pause. James's smirk faltered. Just a crack, but I saw it. Dad slammed his palm on the table. Enough! He's your brother. Family doesn't betray family. The words stung, sharp and cruel. I leaned forward, staring straight at him. Then explain why my family is betraying me. The room froze. Even Mom's breathing seemed to stop. James recovered first. Look, even if paperwork isn't perfect, this is about trust. You either believe in me or you don't. But if you don't... He leaned closer, his voice a whisper with teeth. You'll be alone, Em. Don't think you can shut us out and walk away whole. I felt my chest tighten, but my voice didn't shake. Better alone than robbed? Mom gasped, covering her mouth. Dad glared, his silence louder than shouting. I stood, gathering my papers. I'm not signing. And from this moment on, I record everything. If you push me, if you threaten me, if you try to trick me, I'll bring it all to the police. James's face darkened. You wouldn't. I held up my phone, the red record light glowing. Already am. Pause. The room erupted. Mom cried. Dad cursed under his breath. James stood so fast his chair screeched. You'll regret this, he hissed. I walked to the door, calm, steady. No, I'll survive this. You'll regret it. And when the door closed behind me, I knew. The bridge was burned. There was no going back. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. It was war. He didn't knock like family. He pounded like a debt collector. And when I opened the door on the chain, I saw my name already signed on a page I'd never touched. Pause. It was late afternoon. Thin Idaho light. Shadows like long fingers across my porch. James stood there in a blazer he couldn't quite fill, briefcase in one hand, arrogance in the other. Open up, Em, he said. Let's be adults. I started the voice recorder with my thumb, held low behind the door. The red dot glowed like a heartbeat. Say what you came to say, I told him. We're recording. His eyes flicked to the peephole, a flash of irritation. Fine. We're done playing. I brought the documents. Sign. We wire on Monday. You'll thank me. He held up a clipped stack. I recognized the fake operating agreement on top, but beneath it, new forms, a quitclaim, an assignment of beneficial interest, paper that tried to move my grandfather's legacy out of my hands and into a desert. I kept the chain on. Who prepared those? Counsel, he said. Name? He smiled. You don't know him. Then he doesn't exist. The smile thinned. You're wasting time. Show me the notary. He flipped to the last page, a rectangular stamp, a signature that looked exactly like mine, only neater. Wrong neat. The date? Yesterday? The county, Ada, the notary commission number. I read it twice. James, I said softly, this says I signed yesterday. I didn't. You gave verbal consent? He said too quickly. Mom acknowledged on your behalf. It's all internal family authorization. Verbal consent doesn't sign ink, and my mother can't sign my name. He leaned in. Emily, be reasonable. You don't want this to get ugly. Pause. Behind him, my neighbor watered her petunias and pretended not to look. The sky went the color of pewter. Storm or evening, I couldn't tell which. I slid my phone out where he could see it. Repeat the part about me being homeless if I don't sign. For the record, he blinked, then smirked. If you don't sign, lenders will attach. You'll be illiquid. You won't be able to pay property taxes. You could lose the house. Happy? Threat noted, I said. Again, for the record, his jaw tightened. You want a record? I'll give you one. He lifted the stack higher. You already signed. He tapped the fake signature. All you're doing now is acknowledging. I felt the floor tilt. My own name. Curled the way I used to write it on math tests in the 11th grade. Jane Austen neat, not adult hurried. Whoever copied me had studied me. Who forged that? I asked. His eyes flashed. Don't use words you don't understand. Forgery is a very short word, I said. 4 syllables if you're nervous. He laughed, brittle. You know what? Let's get inside. We can avoid a scene. No. He put his palm flat against the door. Open it, Emily. I kept the chain tight. Leave my property. He leaned closer, breath sour with coffee. You don't have the stomach for this. You'd be surprised, I said, and pressed 911. I didn't hide it. I kept the phone in clear view. Boise Police, what's your emergency? My brother is at my door with forged legal documents and is threatening me regarding my inheritance, I said steady. My name is Emily Parker. I gave the address, the details, the red dot still pulsing. James jerked back. Are you serious? Completely. The dispatcher's voice was calm water. Ma'am, stay on the line. Officers are en route. Do not open the door. Do you feel in immediate danger? No, the chain is on. I'm recording, I said. He's attempting to coerce a signature with fraudulent paperwork. Copy that, she said. Keep talking to me. James paced the porch, then stabbed at his phone. Mom? Dad? She called the cops. Get over here. Pause. The minutes stretched. My heartbeat counted them. James kept muttering, rehearsing a story to himself. Verbal consent, family authorization, opportunity loss. The words frayed each time he said them until they sounded like what they were. Excuses. The first squad car slid up to the curb. Lights, no siren. 2 officers, 1 woman, 1 man, stepped out, hands easy, eyes sharp. Ma'am? The woman called. Emily? Yes, I said through the door. Recording. He has documents with my forged signature. Sir, the male officer said to James. Step back from the door. This is a misunderstanding, James said, and flashed the stack. I'm managing a family investment. The officers separated us. Him down on the walkway, me inside by the hall table, door still chained. The female officer, Reyes on her tag, approached the doorframe. Miss Parker, Officer Reyes said. Permission to see the documents through the crack? Yes. I slid my phone under the chain first. And here is today's recording, plus prior voicemails. She examined the screen, listened, brow narrowing. He threatens financial harm. Notes an acknowledgement of a signature that you deny. She handed the phone to her partner, Officer Patel, who began capturing the files on the body cam with a slow, careful pan. Mr. Parker, Patel said, I'll need those documents. James hesitated, then handed them over with an exaggerated sigh. You're wasting our time. This is civil. Patel's eyes skimmed, then stopped. He looked at Reyes. Notary number? Reyes read it aloud, spoke into her radio, then into her phone. A quiet beat. Dispatch confirms. Commission expired 2 years ago, she said. Stamp is invalid. James tried to chuckle. Clerical error. Also, Patel added, flipping a page, entity names do not match across forms. You're attempting to assign a beneficial interest you don't control, using a void notarization and a signature she denies. He looked up. That's not civil. That's criminal, tension snapped. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until it left me in one long, quiet exhale. My parents' sedan pulled in crooked. Mom bailed out fast, hair wild, pearls crooked. Dad followed, jaw already set to fight. Officers, please, Mom cried. This is family. Reyes lifted a palm. Ma'am, you'll keep your distance. We're conducting an investigation, Dad squared his shoulders at Patel. You're making a mistake. My son. Sir, Patel said evenly. If you're speaking, you're on body camera. Choose your words. Mom saw me through the gap and reached toward the door. Emily, tell them. Tell them we were just speeding things up. I told you to stop, I said. You didn't. Reyes turned back to James. You're under arrest for suspicion of fraud and forgery. She read the rights as Patel cuffed him. James's face went gray, then blotchy. You can't, he barked. You don't have. We have the recording, the invalid notarization, the documents, and the complainant's statement, Reyes said. We have enough. Mom staggered toward James. Sweetheart. He snapped at her, the mask slipping clean off. Don't touch me, Mom. This is her fault. Dad stared at me like I'd set fire to the house. Do you hear yourself? You called the police on your own blood? I met his anger with something calmer than I felt. I called the police on a crime. Pause. They put James in the back of the cruiser. His eyes found mine through the glass, wild now, a boy who'd lost his last coin. He mouthed something I couldn't hear, maybe a threat, maybe my name. The doors shut on it either way. Rhea stayed with me, her voice low. We'll take your statement at the station, or we can do it here. Your choice. Here, I said. I have the documents, my notes, and I've backed up the recordings to the cloud. You can airdrop copies. She nodded. Good. Keep originals in a safe place. Change your locks if you feel unsafe. Consider a no-contact order. Your attorney can advise Walter will, I said, and the steadiness in my voice startled me. Outside, Patel spoke to my parents. He didn't cuff them. He did not smile. He took their IDs, their statements, their phones for a quick screen of recent texts. Photographed, documented, returned. Consequences begin softly. Paper first, then the hammer. Reyes finished the incident report, read it back to me, precise. I signed. My signature, mine, kept its tremor to itself. Do you have somewhere to go tonight? She asked. I have home, I said, and neighbors who water their petunias loudly, a hint of a smile. We'll patrol the block for the next few hours. If anyone returns, call they left. The light bled out of the day. I closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and let my forehead rest against the wood until the adrenaline stopped being a drum. My phone buzzed. Walter. I heard. Reyes just called me for a quick confirm on chain of custody. Proud of you. Email me scans. We'll prepare another text from a number I didn't recognize. Miss. Parker, this is Officer Patel. Case number attached. Save it, I saved it. I saved everything. I made 3 new folders, /audio, /docs, /texts. I uploaded copies to a clean drive. I wrote a timeline with timestamps, locations, names. I backed up the backup. Then I made tea and let my hands shake. If you'd asked me that morning whether I wanted James arrested, I would have said no. I wanted him to stop, to apologize, to be the brother I told myself he still was. Now, standing in my quiet kitchen, I understood something Grandpa Henry never had to say outright. Love without boundaries becomes debt, and unpaid debt turns to theft. Tonight, the sirens wrote the truth across my street. Tonight, the war got public. I turned off the light and went room to room, making sure the windows latched. The house clicked into itself, a safe again. Not perfect, but mine. Tomorrow would be the first day I answered every unknown number with a lawyer on the line. Tomorrow, this would move from porch to paperwork to court. But tonight, I survived the knock. Courtrooms don't echo like churches. They hum, low, electric, heavy. Every cough, every shuffle of papers, every whispered objection becomes part of the storm. And when my name was called, I walked forward carrying not just my evidence, but the weight of blood turned enemy. The Ada County Courthouse rose like a slab of limestone against the Boise sky. Inside, the air smelled of waxed floors and anxiety. Walter walked beside me, steady as always. His briefcase clicked shut like punctuation. "Stay calm, Emily," he said. "We have the truth. Truth is heavy, but it stands." I nodded, though my stomach was a fist. We entered the courtroom. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and silver hair, presided from the bench. The prosecution had already stacked exhibits: copies of my recordings, screenshots, the forged documents. James sat at the defense table, cuff-free but restless. His suit looked borrowed. His smile, once his best weapon, looked fragile now, cracking at the edges. Mom sat behind him, wringing tissues into threads. Dad stared at me, a stone that refused to crack. The bailiff called order. The trial began. The prosecutor rose first. She walked the jury through the timeline. James approached me with fraudulent papers. He presented notarizations that were expired. He threatened financial harm if I refused to sign. Then she played the recordings. James's voice filled the room. His words, threats about me losing my home, rang louder than any gavel. The jury leaned forward. I watched their eyes narrow, their pens scribble. Truth, caught in audio, carried its own conviction. Walter squeezed my hand under the table. Steady. The defense tried to pivot. James's lawyer painted him as misguided, not malicious. He claimed it was a family misunderstanding, paperwork rushed, intent good but sloppy. He even tried to pin responsibility on my parents, saying they encouraged James, blurred the lines. But the prosecution wasn't gentle. She called the notary whose name had been forged. The man, mid-50s, stood stiff. "That's not my stamp. That's not my commission, and I certainly didn't notarize her signature." The jury scribbled harder. Then came me. I rose, walked to the stand, swore the oath. My heart hammered, but my voice found its rhythm. The same rhythm I'd used balancing spreadsheets for years. Precise, accountable. "I am Emily Parker," I said. "The inheritance was mine, left to me by my grandfather, Henry Parker. James attempted to move those funds without consent. Here are the recordings. Here are the notes. Here are the documents I preserved. I explained how I checked the Secretary of State filings, how I cross-referenced names, how I documented every call. I told them what my brother said to me, that I would be homeless, that I would regret refusing." "Did you feel threatened, Ms. Parker?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," I said, "but I felt something stronger, determination. My grandfather trusted me to guard his legacy. I refused to betray that trust. The defense tried to rattle me. Isn't it true you have always been suspicious? That you've mistrusted your brother since childhood?" I looked at James. His eyes flickered, pleading and furious at once. Then I looked back at the lawyer. "Suspicion protects numbers," I said. "And this wasn't childhood. This was fraud." The judge's gavel cracked once. The defense backed off. Days passed. Evidence mounted. Every angle of James's scheme unfolded under fluorescent lights. The shell entities, the expired stamp, the threatening calls. Finally, the jury left to deliberate. I sat outside with Walter, sipping bad vending machine coffee. My parents sat apart, Mom crying quietly, Dad staring into the tile. They didn't speak to me, not once. 2 hours later, the jury filed back in, faces grave, pens tucked away. The foreman stood. We, the jury, find the defendant, James Parker, guilty of fraud and forgery. The words hit like thunder and a sunlight at once. Relief and grief mixed in my chest, raw and heavy. The judge sentenced him to 7 years in state prison. No probation, no parole for at least 4. Then she turned to my parents, not as defendants, but as complicit participants. Helen Parker, she said, voice clear, you knowingly encouraged fraudulent activity. Given your cooperation and lack of prior record, I sentence you to probation and 200 hours of community service. Mom wept openly, clutching the railing. Richard Parker, the judge continued, you aided and abetted by attempting to pressure your daughter. I fine you $50,000. Payable within 1 year, Dad's jaw didn't move. Only his knuckles whitened. Pause. And then the gavel fell. I walked out of the courthouse into bright Idaho daylight. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, I ignored them. Walter walked beside me, steady as always. It's over, he said. Not really, I whispered. But the worst part is... Behind me, I heard Mom call my name once. Just once. I didn't turn. Because some doors, once shut, don't reopen. And some trials end, not with applause, but with silence. But silence can mean peace. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Freedom doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It creeps in quietly, in the way sunlight warms a kitchen table, in the way a dog curls at your feet, in the way silence finally feels safe. After the trial, I didn't celebrate. There were no toasts, no parties, no victory laps. Just me, standing in my driveway, holding keys that felt heavier than before. My brother was sentenced, my parents fined and punished. The Parker family name, once respectable in Boise, was now whispered with shame. And me? I was both the survivor and the exile. The first weeks were the hardest, phones buzzing with unknown numbers, reporters, opportunists, old acquaintances sniffing for gossip. I ignored them. I learned the power of silence. But silence can grow heavy too. Loneliness crept in at night, when the house ticked like it missed voices that used to fill it. That's when Sarah Mitchell knocked on my door. Sarah, my cousin, a woman with laugh lines deeper than her scars. She hugged me like she had no doubts, no judgment. She sat at my kitchen table, pushed a plate of cookies toward me, and said, "You don't need them, Em. You never did. You've got me, and you've got yourself." I didn't cry, not then. But when she left that night, I did. Quietly, finally, the grief poured out. A week later, I wrote a check for $200,000, not to James, not to my parents, to the Idaho Fraud Victims Network, a nonprofit helping people like me, people tricked, threatened, or nearly ruined by the ones they trusted. It didn't feel like charity. It felt like repayment, a way to turn my pain into armor for someone else. Walter smiled when I told him. "That's Henry's legacy," he said, "not the money." The integrity I held those words close. Life after betrayal is strange. You notice small things more, the neighbor waving across the fence, the smell of coffee at dawn, the comfort of knowing every dollar in your account is yours alone. I adopted a dog, Rusty, a mutt with one ear that never stood up straight and eyes too wise for his age. Rusty didn't care about inheritance or family drama or court verdicts. He cared about walks, about treats, about curling against my leg as if to say, "Here, you're not alone anymore." Rusty was right. Slowly, I stitched a new life. I joined a community gardening group. I signed up for watercolor classes at the library. I learned how to bake sourdough bread that actually rose. These weren't grand victories, they were small ones. But after war, small wins are what heal. Sometimes I dream about James. Sometimes I see his grin in the shadows of my mind, or hear Dad's voice accusing me of tearing the family apart. I wake up sweating. Rusty licks my hand, and the dream dissolves. Because the truth is clear now. I didn't destroy the family. They destroyed themselves. All I did was choose survival. On the anniversary of Henry's passing, I drove to the cemetery. The sky was sharp blue, the grass freshly cut. I stood by his headstone, traced the carved letters of his name. I kept it safe, Grandpa, I whispered. I kept myself safe, too. A breeze lifted, rattling the aspens, the same way they rattled the night I first said no, and for the first time, I smiled without guilt. This is who I am now, Emily Parker, 45, retired accountant, survivor of betrayal, builder of new beginnings, not the good daughter, not the easy target, not the victim, just me, whole, scarred, and stronger. And if my family ever calls again, asking for a second chance, I'll let Rusty bark and I'll let silence answer for me. Sometimes the deepest cuts don't come from strangers. They come from the people who share your blood, your table, your name. But here's what I've learned. Betrayal can take away family. It can take away comfort. It can even take away the life you thought you had. What it cannot take is your voice, your truth, your choice to fight back. I thought losing my family would break me. Instead, it built me. So if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been silenced, if you've ever been told to just sign or just stay quiet, remember this: you are stronger than their schemes. And sometimes the bravest word you'll ever say is a single syllable: no.